Hello and welcome to the Cutie Art Crusaders, episode 55 for July 23rd, 2013. My name is Rainbow Plasma, I'm the organizer and editor of this podcast, and today I'm joined by...
Burned to one again, I'm finally back.
Yay.
What do you do, Bernd?
I coordinate special guests and edit sometimes.
There you go.
And I'm Pinky Dash, I'm pretty much useless.
Nice.
That about sums it up, folks.
So,
That's it, Chizzo.
So Flutter Guy is away this week. He's got some sort of shindig he's doing this weekend. So that leaves the three of us, and we're low on time, so I'm going to try to just do this as quickly as possible. I know that we wanted to give you some time, Bern, to talk a little bit about Everfree Northwest, because the three of us talked about it for an hour last week, but maybe if there was something that we missed, or maybe if there's something, that really stood out for you, like in particular, something that was personal to you, then maybe you wanted to talk about it a little bit?
Well, I don't know. It was kind of a crazy experience. I watched a little bit of last week's episode, and it was pretty good. I like the setup and everything. And I guess like the highlight for me was definitely the auction and taking home that painting. To which I want to note that I don't know if you noted in the episode, I did not pay for by myself. Ted and then a man by the name of Jason or Cadriel, the gentleman who gave back the Derpy last year. I was hanging with him during the auction and Ted, and they both put towards $500 each towards that auction. And then I did the rest. But I would not have been able to win that if it wasn't for them. I don't know if that was mentioned in the last episode.
No, we didn't mention anything about price and how much it was and anything like that.
Yeah, like, that's fine to like leave it out. I won't like go over like how much it was, whatever, because you can find out if you really want to. But I just wanted to know that I would not have been able to like buy that if it wasn't for them. And it was like really emotional for me to know that two people would want to like pitch forward that like so much just to help me get something that had so much like sentimental value to me. I don't know. Man, that was like a point I wanted to make. But other than that, the whole like experience was really cool for the convention. It was probably my favorite con trip so far out of the three that I've been to, because we got to do all those awesome interviews with like all the celebrities. Like what you guys interviewed Andrew Francis, and then I got to I got to interview Andrea Libman, and then also do an interview with Michelle Krieber, and then I also had a personal interview, or I believe Pinky Dash, you were my cameraman, where I interviewed Baron Engel. An artist who's super cool, who's also been on Dusty Cat's show. Like that was awesome. He was a really interesting artist, really cool guy, and it was cool to actually interview an artist like in person. Like it was the first time I got to like talk to an artist like up close and like go through his sketchbook, which was amazing.
Yeah, the only thing that I wanted... Well, there's two things that I wanted to bring up just quickly. One of them was the fact that our interviews haven't gone up as of when we're recording this on the Friday. Our interviews haven't gone up on Everfree Network yet. We're still waiting on those. Hopefully those will be up by the time this comes out, or soon after that. They'll be up there eventually. They're kind of slowly putting them out over time. And one other thing, which was last week, I mentioned one of the coolest experiences for me was when someone came up to me when we were backstage and just said, "Hey, are you Rainbow Plasma? Can I get a picture with you?" That guy actually sent me a note this week and saying, "Hey, I'm that guy, blah, blah, blah." And he also put up, by my request, he put up the pictures that he took with us. So here you go. Here's some of them.
On the screen.
Quick. So here's the first one. And then, so the first one was, he asked me, and then Flutter Guy was standing right next to me, so he's like, "Yeah, I'll jump in too." And then after that picture, you like creepily tapped him on the back, and then was like, "I'm gonna get in one too." And so he took a picture then. And then like a few minutes later, Pinky Dash came out of nowhere, and he was like, "Oh, I want a picture with Pinky Dash." And then we all jumped in on that one for the third one.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
So
that was great.
we got a couple pictures.
Because I remember I joined,
Yeah.
I like
I do that.
creepily
I
joined
just-
into the picture, and I think you can kind of see it in the first one. You see me like just reaching over. That's like right when I dived in, and you're like, I'm not just
Yeah.
some creeper. I
Yeah.
like actually am with them. It was great.
Yeah. So he was that guy was the guy who came up. We're semi backstage here after the storyboarders panel, and he just came up and he was like, "Are you Rainbow Plasma?" And I was like, "Yeah, I am." and so we took pictures of them. So just another fan interaction that we didn't really get to talk about last week, and I wanted to because he contacted me. So that was very nice of you. Thank you. His name is Commander Sparkle, Commander-Sparkle on DeviantArt.
You can tell I'm relaxed in that photo. My ears are pointing down.
Damn it.
Everyone loves my
Yeah.
ears. So I got a message from Aurora saying, "I want your ears now."
That was the other like really cool
they're
part of that convention was like it was the first convention besides from when I met Mummified Mustangs that people actually like came up to us and knew who we were and like were looking for us just because like we said we were doing it ahead of time on the show, so we had a good like 5 people. One of the coolest people who had come up to me was a dude. He sent me a note, so I'm gonna go grab it real quick. So he sent me a note, and just so he could like get back in contact with me, because I kind of said to him like, "Hey, you should send me a note on DeviantArt." But anyway, when he ran into me at the convention, he was like, "Hey, are you Burned01?" And I was like, "I totally am." And he was like, "Would you like to play a game of Magic?" And like had his deck, and I was like, "Oh snap." And I didn't have my Magic deck. Like, I didn't bring my Magic the Gathering decks because I keep them in my little derpy bag, my pony bag. But I took all of the stuff from my derpy bag out, all of my Magic stuff out, so I could put like pony swag in it at the con, which I never ended up using anyway because I always like left it in the room. But it was sad because a fan from our show came up to me and wanted to play Magic, and I didn't have a Magic deck. It was so depressing. I was super sad about that.
How often do you go anywhere without a Magic deck?
Not often, because I usually always leave it in my car. Considering I work at like a Magic store like every day now. Well, Monday through Friday.
Like a
Anyway,
grown-up.
and then the other really super cool last part was actually getting to meet the Isla Wolf. Because she had been
That was fun.
she had been so excited about it, and then like when we finally got to meet up with her, it was really cool.
Yeah.
One of our most passionate fans to date. We love you.
I would say, yeah.
We used some of her
yeah.
pictures last week.
Also, her photos are everywhere now.
Thanks. It's true. A lot of her photos from the con were not only used by us, but a lot of people online apparently liked them. They were good.
was
They were high
one nice
quality.
camera. I'll
I
tell you
like using them.
that. Oh yeah, did you talk about the little what is it? The name tags. The little thingies I got for you guys.
Oh yeah, of course.
What is it? Did you talk about hers? Did you mention hers? Did you see what was around her neck? This kind of was a little Easter egg thing to throw in there. I thought it was funny. But when I found out that she was going to the convention, because I got the commissions for you guys ahead of time, and then I found out she was going to the commission like right after that. I was like, oh, like that's awesome. So to do a little something special, I got a commission for her as well, and then I asked KW, the commissioner, if she could put a necklace of my cutie mark around the Isla Wolves.
That's funny. I didn't notice
yeah,
that.
cool. I
So
didn't see
did
that.
for her. And I'm really glad she liked it. It was funny because I was giving him I had just come up to KW to grab mine, because I was gonna like wear mine to rub it in a little before you guys knew that I got them for you.
Yeah, you did.
So you guys would be like jealous of it for when I took you actually to get yours. And when I was getting mine, she walked up and saw it hanging there, and then she started doing like her little fangirl, like, oh my gosh, it's great. It's great. It's good stuff.
So yeah, con was good
Oh, yeah.
for everyone.
Was
everyone loved
great
it.
fun.
Best experience
I'm
of
glad-
life.
I'm glad you got to talk
I've
about it.
heard actually a lot of people saying this was the best convention they've ever been to.
Oh yeah. That and last special thing, which you guys did mention, was going to hang out with Cosmic Unicorn after.
Yeah, that dinner was really nice. I'm glad we did it. Okay, so we're not only short on time, but now we're extra short on time because we talked about that. So let's jump into this week's theme, which is going to be a little bit shorter. We've only got 3 pieces for you this time. But this week's theme is mountains. And so every piece today will feature some kind of mountain. So, Bernd, why don't you introduce our first piece?
First piece for this episode is called Adventure by Sea Maggot. Yeah, quite
interesting name.
And this is a piece that is inspired by another piece by Aaron JVL, of all people.
I think I recognize it.
Which was one of Aaron JVL's like first pony pieces back from like December of 2012. Yeah. Wait.
Yeah, I've definitely recognized
No,
that.
scratch that, not first pony pieces, because that's quite recent.
Yeah, definitely
I was
not.
thinking 2011. Apologies.
Right.
But one of Aaron JVL's pieces, which is kind of cool.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's interesting because like it's quite the beautiful landscape, and I mean it's kind of interesting. You actually picked mountains because when we were down in on the West Coast, it was
Mountainous.
like some of the first times I've ever seen mountains, just because there's no mountains on the East Coast.
No, that
so.
actually was really funny, and I was actually kind of laughing about that when I picked this as a theme, and I was gonna mention it but didn't. But that was one of the things that you and Ted were requesting when you were staying with me for a week, is that like, hey, you should take us to go see mountains.
Is there no mountains in Canada?
Or at least drive around.
There is in certain parts, but not like right on the East Coast.
West Coast.
And it was really funny, and I was kind of
Coast.
taken aback from it, because I was like, what? Like, I don't know how to take people to go see mountains. Like, no one's ever asked me to see mountains. But that was a sentence straight out of Ted, was just like, you should take us to see mountains. I was like, what?
I think that this piece is really good at capturing that kind of thing, because when I went over to the West Coast, it was just kind of, you had this sense of awe, because normally I'm just used to looking at like rolling hills or, flat landscapes or whatever, trees. But when you have something like so huge in the background, it's kind of, I don't know, it's a combination of like depth and size, because you can tell it's so far away from you, right? Especially this piece kind of works in that regard. You can tell that it's very far away from you. And the fact that it's the same size as Twilight, but that far away, gives you a really big sense of, holy cow, that's huge.
No, this piece does do that really awesome effect of like making something far away and making it actually seem huge. And it's all about that atmospheric perspective-y stuff. The little tiny like rolling hills on the right bottom right, that like the size of that compared to Twilight is almost messes with me a little bit, but since there's so much like fog and cloud and atmosphere in the way of those, it does help give that sense that it actually is far away. And then that scratchy brushwork all next to it really helps give a feeling of trees, especially right above Twilight, where there's that scratchy green on what you can tell is a faraway mountain, because there's like those clouds parting in between like the Twilight and like right around Twilight and that mountain there. And it does really help give that sense of like vastness and hugeness, especially with the clouds behind the clouds in the very, very background where it actually has those clouds painted. Since we all recognize clouds and like how big clouds are and what clouds look like in comparison to things, when you draw clouds next to things that are massive, it also really helps give that sense of size and that sense of like dynamic, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I do agree. And you mentioned atmospheric perspective, which I was going to bring up, because you've talked about in the past how things that are farther away are obviously a little bit more obscured and a little bit more foggy, and it's got that kind of effect to it. Of course, you could probably say it better than I did, but you can also see how the artist used that, because what this scene is supposed to convey is Twilight and Spike are on a cliff. That little part down there in the bottom left-hand corner is like a cliff, and then you've got like these rolling hills, these mountainous regions, this stuff is farther away from that. And you can see he kind of separates the foreground and the background using a lot of that atmospheric perspective and a lot of that fog and mist to cut away from the two, because they're similar
exactly,
colors.
because since it's so far away, there is like air physically getting in between that cliff and like what is far. That's sometimes a problem when artists were trying to make something look far away, is they won't have any kind of separating factor to tell you like something is far, and you really need those like key points of things like atmosphere or things like objects or shapes in coordination to things to say like how big something is, like trees or like clouds.
Yeah,
I'm
actually going to a mountain later today if you want to take a photo for explaining this in the real world.
I'm sure I can find photos of the internet, but a CAC official one might be cool.
That'd be interesting.
I'll see what I can do.
Well, there is something I do want to say about this piece, and you know, we're not here just to talk about the best things about art pieces. I do think that there's something that this piece could improve, and that's it's got really good depth in the foreground. It's got really good depth in the in the background, but the middle ground could use some work because I did find it quite hard to tell the size of the objects on the right and on the left compared to Twilight. Once I kind of learned the scene, once I learned that she was actually on a cliff, then it made a little bit more sense. But when you look at the inspired piece, the Path to Canterlot, it's definitely got a lot more depth to it because there's a size of scale for each thing. I think the problem that there is that the things in the middle ground, that dirt mountain to the left, and like you said, the hills or mounds or something on the right, I think those are too big. Because I think, I don't know what it is about them, but they just take away from the background a little bit. And they have some sort of weird... for some reason, when I look at it, the foreground makes sense and the background makes sense, but then the middle ground kind of clashes. Maybe I'm just not seeing it the right way, but that's kind of how I view it.
Like, the mountain on the left looks good to me, but then the little hills on the right do create, like, an odd feel for me, but it's the, like, atmosphere and the way that kind of makes up for it.
Mm-hmm. Maybe even having a little bit more view of what they're standing on would help me see that, like, oh, look, they're on a cliff, you know? Whereas it's hard to kind of tell. This could almost be a hill, you know? It's hard to tell that it's a big cliff with a sheer drop, which is, I think, what the artist was going for.
It could be a hill, but you want to have enough there to tell that it's something that's close. And then whether, like, it's cliffy or not, you can kind of leave up to interpretation.
Artistically speaking, though, it's quite the beautiful piece, I have to admit. It's got a lot of great detail, and the artist obviously knows how to do landscapes in a beautiful way.
I was just going to agree with those mountains or the boulders, whatever they are on the right. They don't really look like they should. They look a bit strange. It's like you can't really tell. Well, you can sort of tell how far away they are just by looking at the stuff around it. But just them by themselves, you can't really tell much. Like you can't. I don't know. It's weird. It tricks the mind, just like Max was saying.
Yeah, that's what you really want to do with art like this, is trick the mind. That's basically what a lot of art is tricking the mind to believe that this 2D image has some sort of, like, real life aspect.
And I think if there's one thing that I could say is that I think in a piece with mountains, you have to make the mountains the tallest thing. Because I think what they did in the background is they created these big, vast this huge, vast mountain range, or like ice glacier thing, you know? It's supposed to be huge, and I really get that feeling, and they do that really well. But then when you have things in the middle ground that are just as tall, it kind of skews things oddly. When you have things in the foreground, you can tell they're close, that's why they're bigger. But when you have the middle ground, there's a weird thing where that mountain on the left, while it looks fantastic by itself, in the composition of the piece, it's like, well, it looks bigger than the mountains.
Yeah, but I mean, that's the point, right? Because let's say these mountains are similar in scale. That mountain in the midground is going to be bigger than the mountains far away because since they're so far, they're going to scale down.
I suppose. Maybe this could even be a cultural influence because from where I come from, mountains, when you see a mountain, it's like, bam, that's a mountain. The focal point is that mountain, you know, because we don't see mountains.
That's actually a really cool concept of just like the cultural way of how people would view mountains, because another reason why I really like this piece is like it looks like stuff I've seen. Like this actually looks like an accurate representation of size of mountains that I've physically seen in real life. Right. Because it again, why it was so funny for me when you guys were like, take me to see mountains, because you weren't used to it. Like I grew up physically on a mountain, surrounded by mountains, because I was born in Alaska and I grew up in Anchorage. And Anchorage is literally a city on this little peninsula in Alaska, physically surrounded by mountains. Like there's a Puget Sound, and when you look across the Puget Sound, mountains. When you look behind me, mountains. When you look to the north, more mountains. And when you look to the south, you kind of see water and like the Puget Sound, but if you wrap around the Puget Sound, mountains.
Right.
So I lived on basically this like somewhat part of a mountain that you could like climb to the top of, but that's kind of what Anchorage is on. It's on this big slope of a mountain. And if you went around the edge of this mountain I lived on, you could go hike up to this mountain called Flat Top. And I used to hike up there all the time when I was young. And it's called Flat Top because the top of the mountain's flat. Get it? So when you actually physically hike up there, you get an amazing 360-degree view of Anchorage and all these mountains. And there's a physical mountain range behind Flat Top that you can go look at and keep climbing on mountains if you want. But like I was so used to that it's like that's what normal stuff is supposed to look like. That when I see like flat plains, I'm just like, where are the mountains? You're supposed to be able to see them in the horizon. So, but anyway, another point. Oh, last point on this piece, if you didn't have anything you wanted to add.
No, I'm good.
Is the color. The color on this piece is amazing. In Aaron JVL's, it's very like mono palette-ish. It's very simple colors, like some blues, some greens, and it's very smooth, little desaturated. And this one, there's tons of colors thrown in with all the flowers at the bottom with all the blues and turquoises like blended into the mountains on the right, and then the sky blues in the mountains on the far. Like it's
and the middle
awesome.
ground is not just a green, but it's also like a yellow green. There's a bit of orange. You've got the brown dirt.
Yep.
You know, there's a lot of different colors.
And that's awesome to see in digital painting. Definitely go look at this piece in its full resolution, because in its full huge like wallpaper size resolution, it's really awesome.
For sure.
All right.
So our next piece is called Sky Colored Days by Egophiliac, who people should recognize if they've watched our show a little bit, because we're big fans of her. She did Moonstuck and Slice of Life, and she's also had an interview on our show. And this wonderfully... It's not frame size, oh my god. Aspect ratio. So this wonderfully horrific aspect ratio piece...
it's a vertical composition.
Yeah, well, it doesn't work great for a horizontal video.
It's good for a comic book, right? We could make Cutie Art Crusaders the comic book show. Or the Cutie Art Crusaders Tilt Your Head Day. I don't know.
So this is interesting because it, I think, a little bit more emphasized the mountains differently than the last piece. Because in this one, they're very singular. You know, there's no other distractions. There's clouds and there's sky, but obviously those aren't a big deal. You know, you've got twilight, and in the background you've got those large mountains. So that's a different view from obviously the last artist.
Mountains.
Yes.
I really like when Egophiliac does fancier stuff.
Yeah, because Egophiliac does a really good job with cartoony comic styles. Makes some great expressions, and has a good sense of comedy with her pieces. You know, her Tumblrs are more than proof of that. But you're right, when she does more serious stuff. And I think the amazing thing about this one is that normally, like we've been doing this for a year, more than a year now, normally we're pretty good at being able to tell a lot of artists' style. You know, I can see something that Sibsy drew on a sketchbook, and I'll probably be able to tell it's Sibsy. And the same goes for artists all the way up to Egophiliac. And the thing that I found interesting about this one was, if I had not known this is by Egophiliac, I probably wouldn't have guessed it was. And so she was obviously branching out her styles a little bit with this piece, and I think it came out fantastically.
Yeah, if you like her Moonstuck stuff and all of her Tumblrs, like you should, if you haven't, you should go check out her DeviantArt, because it has some very cool stuff there. She's done some like Art Nouveau-esque stuff that's really cool, and then she does pieces like this, and then she also does more advanced funny pieces like Cadence riding a motorcycle, jumping over a like an alligator-filled moat. I don't know, crazy junk.
Speaking of Moonstuck, I've been playing a heck of a lot of Kerbal Space Program, and my flag is Luna. So she's on the moon.
Nice, cute.
Thanks to Kirid for making that.
When it comes to mountains in this one, it's harder to tell because while they're the only kind of landscape in this piece, they're very much in the background, which is interesting to me because it creates this. I think mountains are more powerful when they're in the background. I mean, there's nothing like being at a base of a mountain and seeing how huge it is. Yeah. But like I said before, when something's super far away and still that big, there's something like deep in your core that just goes, whoa. And I think that's similar here.
Something I'll have to take you to do is hiking actually like up a mountain. Because there's something kind of cool about being halfway up a mountain and then like just getting to a ridge. And you're like, oh, I'm almost at the top. And then you realize it's just like the half ridge and there's still like a whole... You're not even like halfway up the bloody mountain. But if you look behind you, like you get to see like all the way down what you've already climbed. And you're like, Jesus God.
Yeah.
I actually have a cabin in Alaska that's on more mountains. And they have old abandoned mine shafts that I would go hike up to. Kennecott, Alaska, a real pretty place.
That's cool.
But the mountains in this, they're kind of cool because they're a lot more simple. You know, it's just like a shade of black and then a gradient of white to gray and then some little white spots to show like kind of crevices on the mountain or snow. And it kind of creates this cool effect that's very, very simplistic. So she has this like pony character, obviously Twilight with her wings, beautiful wings flying in the wind, and then just this very like simplified artsy background of mountains made out of like a few shades of like vectorized colors. And also at a, what do you want to call that? A 45-degree tilt, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. A lot of the
I always love when people play
a lot
with
of the flying
like
pieces that we've featured all like to play with that kind of varying tilt, you know, because like you're flying with them, so the world below you is
It's good practice to get into because it isn't easy to do, and it's something that a lot of people stray from doing because it's kind of similar to the putting characters in the darkness, you know, that I've talked about a couple times, where, you know, everyone likes to put their characters in the light so that they can see the characters, but people are afraid to put them in the darkness. But sometimes you need to, or sometimes it creates an interesting effect. From the same token, it's not necessary to use different angles, but it's good. It's good practice to try that out. You know, it's something that you can test yourself with. Can I make a landscape at a 45-degree angle and make it look good? Give it the right amount of energy.
The trick is making it look good, because like doing it can sometimes be simple. Because you literally just rotate your canvas 45 degrees and then you paint a landscape as you would normally flat, and it just ends up coming out on the corner. But actually doing it like correctly and making it look good with the composition of your piece is the big trick. So it's a good thing to keep doing and a good thing to keep trying, because you'll learn how to, you know, what looks good, what doesn't.
Mm-hmm. And it's important. It sounds silly, but the angle of the piece is really important too, because if you get into too much of a steep angle, it can look a bit chaotic. Of course, maybe you want to have that feel, but each angle provides a different mood to a piece.
Yeah, exactly.
Because like when you think about it, if you go 45-degree angles, this gets a little bit. Obviously, what you do with the rest of the piece also heavily influences the mood. For example, this is at a 45-degree angle, but it doesn't look chaotic. But you have to be careful with that, because a 45-degree angle can be quite extreme, and especially if you go past that, then it's almost sideways. It's more sideways than it is upright. So, you know, considering your angle when testing this kind of stuff, it plays a huge part.
And just experimenting with dynamic perspectives, like you said, is just like a good habit in general, and something that like artists should definitely try. In this piece, it's kind of cool because, I mean, if you were to just like tilt it 45 degrees back to normal, I mean, it's not very dynamic anymore. It's just a flat horizon with Twilight flying in a flat line. But when you tilt it like this, now you get the sense that your movement and you're tilting with her, and her tail is like physically whipping like she's doing loops. It gives much, much more dynamic feel.
Mm-hmm. One more thing. I also wanted to point out that as someone who enjoys this kind of piece, I do like pieces where it uses the same color in different ways. And in this one, purple is a heavy influence. Obviously, Twilight is 3 different kinds of purple. But also, you can see the sky is a nice gradient from like a darker blue up to a pink with lots of purple in between. The mountains themselves are purple. You know, it's a very good use of color, because it doesn't scream, "Look, I made everything in purple." But at the same time, she kind of just did make everything in shades of purple,
a lot of violets, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So it's interesting that she's able to use color, to use one color in a way that makes it seem like it's not just one color, which is something that takes a lot of time to do, and that shows me that she's very experienced with using colors and experimenting with the colors and things like that.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. All right. Anything else?
I think that's it for me.
All right. So our last piece of the day is one of my favorite pieces that I've seen so far in terms of color, but it's called Summer Stay by Synaptics, I believe.
Syntactics.
Syntactics.
Yes.
And it's a very cool piece, and like I said, one of my favorites. And I was gonna save it for an expressionistic episode that I wanted to do, but it kind of fit the theme of what we shoved together today for just mountains, because every single one has at least a mountain. And
Plus, there are so many expressionist pieces out there,
you'd say that, but for pony pieces, it's far and in between to try to find good expressionist pony pieces. You know what I mean? Because they have to have ponies in them to like feature it on the bloody show. And so it's like ponies is my constraint. So I have to find expressionist pieces that I really like that have really good talking points. It's hard, but anyway, irrelevant.
Why don't Pinky Dash? Why don't you tell us a little bit about this piece and what it does for you? Because I know you haven't said a lot, or you've probably taken it out of your mouth a lot. So why don't you talk a little bit about this piece?
Okay. Well, first off, I love the art style where there's no real lines, and if there is, there's like on the ear mainly, and a bit of the wings you can see. It's not your conventional colors. It's more. It fits in with each individual character, and it looks amazing.
Yeah, the coloring in it for sure is definitely really, it's really saturated and really vivid. It's almost like someone put the only like reference point I have is back in Halo 3 when they had the filters. They'd have like the juicy filter, which would turn up the saturation and contrast and things like that. But yeah, it's basically saturation and contrast of the colors, so it makes it really, really vivid. Which can normally look quite meh, but because the entire piece's style is centered around it, it looks quite nice.
Yeah. Was it in the Forge?
That was in Forge.
Yeah. I mean, the sort of the bright colors that they've got there in the outline sort of reminds me of Blitz Pony a little bit.
Yeah.
But, I thought Burn would like that reference. But I love the way that there is no lines apart from that. I mean, in the tail you can see there's no lines, it's just individual strokes.
You mean like outlines, right?
Same with the mane. Yeah, there's no, sorry, outlines.
Okay, yeah.
But, and then the eyes is all really not that detailed, which I normally don't like because I love eyes on characters. But on this one, they're not the eyes aren't really the central part, which is great because they're focused really on the colors of the two characters on the front, which is great.
Those two provide a really good contrast to each other, don't they?
They do. Yeah. Spitfire.
Oh, okay. I was saying if you're finishing up.
I know you got
point.
something to say.
You guys were just pointing out stuff that reasons why I brought up the piece and color was one of the main things, and then style, because it's real key for expressionistic pieces that it becomes more about like the color and the emotion than it does like describing things and making things look visually accurate, or similar to things you would see in real life, like mimicking things that you could see in like everyday setting. So like
right, because these colors would never come up in everyday settings, right?
Yeah, well, it's not just exactly. It's not just the colors. It's also things like scenes like the mountain. Like obviously you would never see a blatantly black purple mountain thing. And it's like there's definitely some stuff that mimics atmospheric perspective and like sizes of clouds. But it's obviously just paint and colors thrown. It's obviously just paint and colors thrown there. There's not a lot of care put into like making it like accurately to seem like our first piece, for example. Do you know kind of what I mean?
Yeah, no, I do know what you mean about how it not being accurate, and I think one of the most interesting things about this piece is that it keeps a consistent theme, quite the expressionist theme, like you were mentioning. But I think it uses 3 different kind of drawing styles. I'm not really sure how to describe it, but if you look at the top of the sky, it's very loose brush strokes. It's got a lot of you can see a lot of the artist's work. It's very to use a word that sounds negative, messy, but it's not necessarily a negative.
It's a good word.
And then you've got the middle of the piece, which is a little bit more smoothed out. It's almost got like a little bit of a blur on it. Obviously, you've got the dark mountain. You've got a couple more of the clouds that are a little bit more round and fluffy. And then you've got the foreground, which is the characters, which are much more detailed, and the grass. And that entire bottom third of the piece is a lot of different colors put together in smaller details. So I think it's really interesting how this entire piece has one feel to it and can be defined under expressionistic.
Yeah.
It's a hard word to say.
Yeah.
But it's simultaneously got 3 different quote unquote drawing styles in it.
Yeah, Exactly, like awesome point. And I love that term messy. We like to use it on the show because messy is a good thing, and it's loose brushwork. You can tell that it is brushwork, and there was like an artist's hand involved there with like a digital brush in this case. And it's another way of like an artist saying like I was there, my hand made this. It's something that I painted. And expressionist work is like really about that. And we'll just say expressionist. Expressionistic is the proper word because it's mimicking expressionist like paint style, whatever.
Right.
Fancy pants art terms. But anyway, awesome point. So painting strokes. What was I going to mention? I was going to mention something. On a kind of like expressionist work becomes more about the color and the mood and the setting. It's a very important thing for expressionistic work that you can tell what something is. If you can't tell what it is, or it's subjective, where like it doesn't make a lot of sense, then it starts moving towards abstract because it's going away from what it was to become something else or something different or far whatever. Maybe get into that later, but in expressionist work, it's very important that you can tell what something is. So we can clearly tell that those are ponies. We can tell that it's Rimadesh. We can tell that it's Spitfire, and we can tell that that is a mountain, like visually with enough like certainty that that is a mountain, and we can tell that those are clouds. So things look like things that we can like make sense of, and it makes sense like, oh, that looks like this, but obviously by no means does it look like I've actually seen stuff like that in real life. That looks like, oh, I see purple mountains on a day-to-day basis, or what, you know what the point I mean, where you can visually see that that is ponies and a mountain and clouds, but it's not about like the realist episode that we did, where it's all about physically representing something as accurate as possible to how you could see it. In this, it's much more about the colors, much more about the mood, and everything in this piece colored. It's so light and happy and colorful that it's about like this joyous kind of it's kind of to make a joke. Well, I guess not. I thought his name was kind of like Serenity, but it's very Serenity-like piece. Very surreal. That's the word I'm looking for.
There you go.
There we
Surreal.
go. But very awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Especially with
For
like
sure.
the turquoise in the top, and then it kind of like goes down into the purple, kind of has that gradient.
Mm-hmm. One more point to make. I thought I'd just bring this up very quickly, but something that happens a lot in these vivid pieces is you'll see, especially on characters, shadows will not be normal colors, and it creates a really interesting effect. For example, if you look on Spitfire, the shadows on her wing are like a reddy purple, and then you'll see on her neck is like the shadows are green. So these shadows are not normal colors that you'd normally think to shade in, but it really goes with the style of the piece, and that is a really key point of an expressionist piece when you have that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's awesome point. And I love that in just this kind of style in general, that like those shadows are depicted in colors. A lot of artists like Mewball or Ankylosaurus, like they'll really like to use, or even Caramel Brulee too, if you go look at her work. They really like to use those colors to represent like different shadows and depth and stuff. It's a very key point of this piece, and it's very pretty. And again, go look at it in full resolution if you can, or get the time or get the chance, because you can see the ponies a lot better than you could on the screen here.
Right.
And they're so pretty and colorful.
For sure. So, let's move on to our question today, so that we don't keep you for too long, Burn, because I know you've got stuff to go do. So, what's our question today, Pinky Dash?
This is the first question I've done in I didn't even know how long. Okay, so a question I've got today is sent in by Nocturnal Pony. And the question is, what is your process for choosing art and themes for each episode?
You did this week's question on purpose, didn't you?
I did.
What's your process? Sit down on Friday 5 minutes before we're supposed to record and go,
we need something now.
Yeah, what have we got? What's the most recent upload by anybody that's related to Pony, and what do we make a theme out of?
Well, it's funny because we originally started with just doing kind of taking a lot of art pieces and making themes around them. So we take an art piece that we really wanted and we say, what kind of themes could this art piece be involved with? And then we say, for example, this week we'd look at a piece and go, okay, this has mountains in it. Can we find other good looking art pieces as well that have mountains in it, and can we make that a theme? So that's what we used to do, and to a point we still do that to this day, and I think it's a good strategy that we do. But what we've been trying to do lately, and we've been really messed up with because of our schedules and because of the last month, it's been so hectic with 1 year anniversaries and Everfree Northwest and all that stuff. What we've been trying to do is really plan them ahead of time, get a good theme, whether it's educational, entertaining, or whatever, and set up some solid art pieces the week before. Unfortunately, we haven't really been able to do that recently, but hopefully in the next couple months we'll be able to get back into that groove. I'm not sure, Bern, do you want to talk a little bit about why and how you choose art for the show?
My method is really I try to find art that I enjoy and like physically really do enjoy and get some sense of like, wow, this is something that is really good for X and Y reasons and like have good talking points.
I was just going to say, we never pick art pieces that we don't look at and like. Sometimes we have conflicts. Like sometimes I'll look at something and I go, wow, this is really spectacular. I have to include this. And everyone else is like, I don't know what you're talking about. This is like, it's good, but like, I'd rather include this. And so we talk about that. But, you know, there's never anything that we put on there just because we think it would fit better or we think it's, you know, we always put stuff that we enjoy looking at. And it's that sweet spot of looking at things that are, you know, technically really fantastic, and also ones that we really like too.
Like when I look for art, I definitely look for stuff that you could say is more like artsy, and I look for stuff that does wow me in like a more artistic sense, whether it's brushwork style or whatever. And like I have my own preferences, but I try to like kind of leave that aside and look for something that is like very skilled, very unique, and very like worth featuring on a show and like being like talking about it, highlighting it, and has like got a lot of good points like that. And for my process for like choosing themes and stuff, what I really do when I go and look at art is I keep going out and trying to find art that does like fit some kind of theme or point and is really good, and like I keep it and like collect it and like store it in my favorites so I can use it for later. So like for a while I've been kind of like collecting like expressionist works. I kind of want to do an expressionist episode, and then I just keep looking for things that definitely visually wow me a lot, and sometimes they don't fit together in like a nice clean theme because I don't have a very good process, because I just really most of the time just enjoy looking at art and finding all this fantastic art.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, themes are good because they keep things focused, and you can get a consistent kind of flow going with an episode. But it's hard sometimes because our brains don't think in groups of 3 or 4 for themes. They just go, I like this piece, I like this piece, I like this piece. So
sometimes we do that, and then sometimes we do more advanced themes. I want to do more educational like themes where it's the theme is actually something to talk about a point. But sometimes finding the art that kind of fits that consistent theme is sometimes difficult. And
we also all like to spend some time when we do those pieces, when we do those themes especially, to really flesh them out, because when we want to be educational, we want to make sure that we're doing the best job that we can. When we're being entertaining, we can just goof around. Or when we're just talking about like a certain pony piece, like if we do a theme on a certain character, which we're going to try to do more of as well in the future, that's not as big of a deal than when we're trying to really teach something and really get a point across. And so those things have been harder to do recently because we haven't had a lot of time to prepare them. But again, that's something that we're looking into to try and get more educational things. I know we've wanted to do one on composition for a long time. I know, Bern, you wanted to do like expressionism and things like that. And, but those ones are a little bit more complicated to set up because we want to do them right. And unfortunately, just lately, we haven't had a lot of free time to devote to those kind of things.
Oh, yeah.
Hopefully in the future, though.
I think, yeah, just busy.
Yeah, life's busy. We're all busy beavers.
I've been trying to plan to go to BronyCon too, so like that's been pretty busy on my plate too, to try to be able to work that into my budget with work and everything, getting hours off.
Yeah,
buddy.
That'll put a stick in your wanting educational episodes.
Yeah. We'll All the silly episodes. Next Friday, or we'll probably get to talk about it more. Get that confirmation that I will be going to BronyCon. But I mean, I kind of already got my plane ticket, so totally going. But anyway.
So yeah, that's a little insight into how we do themes and how we pick art and things like that.
It's a bunch of crazy.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
are
it is.
always less organized than we want to be, but it works out in the end, so I can't really complain.
Yeah, right. We just try to do our best and work hard to get this episode out for you guys, like each and every week. And sometimes it's
At least
not.
At least
Yeah,
we
it
seem
doesn't go
professional.
as according to plan as we wanted to, but you got to get it out, and we love doing it.
Yeah. So this week is going to go short because, like we said, we're under kind of time constraints this week, which is unfortunate.
Yep.
But we hope you guys enjoyed this little episode, and I think it went really well considering the time constraints that we had, and the lesser number of pieces. I still think it went really well.
Yeah, no, I had fun. I had some good points too, which I kind of like to talk about, which was awesome. I always really enjoy an episode when I can get those little artsy fartsy things in to be able to talk about them.
Yeah.
You're my answer.
So something that we haven't done for the last month and a half, which I think we should start doing again, get back into the habit of doing, is plugs. You're absolutely right. So do you want to get on that, Picky Dash?
I'll get on that. Okay, so we have a DeviantArt account, which is Cutie Art Crusaders .deviantart.com. So cutieartcrusaders.deviantart.com. There you can see all of our previous episodes. The favorites folder has all the deviations we've featured in previous episodes, as well as stuff that we haven't been able to show for time constraints and just didn't fit the theme, that sort of thing. Also links to our own personal pages if you want to talk to us individually. Our email address is cutieartcrusaders@gmail.com. If you have any art you'd want us to look at and you don't really want to link on DeviantArt, or you don't have a DeviantArt account, you can send it to us there. Or any questions you want to ask us, or you think we should ask on the show, that sort of thing, send it to us at the email account. But put what you're sending us in the subject line. So if it's a question, put question in the subject line. If it's an art thing, put art in the subject line, something like that, just so that Gmail filters it out for us, and so we know what we're looking at, and what's new, and what we've already seen, etc., etc. Social media, we don't have Flutter Guy, so I'll do it. We have a Twitter account, which is @CutieArtCrusade, because it wouldn't fit our full name. You can find up-to-the-minute information on shows, whether they're airing and whether there's delays or there's technical difficulties, that sort of thing. Also Facebook, Cutie Art Crusaders on Facebook. A few of us are on there. We get quite a few followers, likes on the Facebook page, so that's quite good. Same with Twitter. There's actually quite a few people that talk to us on the Twitter.
Yeah, that's it's standard social media. You know how social media works? That's how it works.
Yeah.
There you go. It's not difficult.
Yeah, that. Yeah. Well, I personally don't have a Twitter account. So. And also on YouTube, Bernd will respond to you if you talk on the YouTube channel, on the Everfree Network YouTube channel, which airs us. Bernd is usually quite good at it.
And it's a good point. It's a good point to bring up that also those interviews that we were doing with Andrew Francis, Andrea Libman, and Michelle Kreber. Those should be going up soon on Everfree Network. We're still bugging them about it, so hopefully they'll get those up soon. And also our walk around, if you didn't see it, our 50-minute walk around of the Artist Hall went up last week, so check that out as well.
Yep.
Also, the one with
Peter New.
Peter New.
No, it hasn't. So we're gonna bug them about that too. They're busy folks. I think they're going to another convention this weekend or something. I don't know. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Too many pony conventions.
And yeah, and feel free to leave us a like on our little videos too. It helps other people see them.
All right. Well, thank you guys for watching. Sorry for the short episode, but I think that's the first time I've ever apologized for having a short episode. But sometimes this is just how these things kind of work. So we'll be back next week for definitely a longer episode. And unfortunately, like we said, because we're not organized, we don't have the theme for next week. But that's part of the fun. Surprise. Learn to like surprises.
Maybe I'll put it on the screen.
Probably not.
Now.
You don't know me, man.
Maybe.
So yeah, be sure to tune in next week. Thank you for watching, whether or not you're on the live stream or on YouTube. We love you all the same.
Oh, yeah.
My name is Rainbow Plasma.
I'm Brony.
And we'll see you guys next week.
Love your face.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.